Hi everyone, it's JJ here and welcome to Be Colorful. Here in front of me, my Tonic Craft kit number 35. This is the second part of the video where I will create 10 cards with this Shabby Chic style kit. But I will also create cards in different styles, so as to please all tastes. If you'd like to have a close-up look of all the products included in the kit, I refer you to the first part of this video, and for more information about this kit, I leave you the link to the Tonic Studios website down below in the description box. And now let's get started! In the first part of the video I showed you some techniques to create backgrounds using the Nuvo Shimmer powder included in the kit. Let's continue therefore with two other techniques. I'm gonna use the mixed media paper for this background. I will create a wood effect again, but instead of water I will use glue as a medium, in particular a gel medium with a matte finish. I will spread the glue with a dry brush and I will not take the gel medium directly from the container to avoid dirtying it with the colored pigment. So I lightly paint the glue with the shimmer powder and spread the first layer, always with vertical brush strokes. Now I'm gonna spread a generous layer of glue on the surface and sprinkle some powder in various points of the background, and then spread it with the brush, always with a unidirectional movement. To make the glue more malleable, it can be diluted with a little water. By using glue instead of water, we are able to better control the pigment and, in addition, we get less diluted colors. In this background I'm going to add some rose gold details with the Nuvo gilding flakes included in the kit. So with the Nuvo glue pen I draw some stripes on the panel. I remind you that to apply the gilding flakes in this way you need to use a glue that, even when dry, remains sticky. So now I'm going to apply the gilding flakes, removing the excesses with a stiff Bristol brush. And that's it. Now let's turn the panel into a card, but before... This card will have a similar design to the second card I proposed in the first part of the video. To start, I'm gonna cut out the background into a 5 1/4 by 4 inches panel. Then I'm gonna darken up the edges with an olive green ink, applying it with a blending sponge. To add some interest but subtle details to my background, I'm going to randomly stamp some handwritten text with this Tim Holtz stamp. I'm gonna use my clear Versamark ink because I'm going for the embossing technique with the embossing powder included in the kit. Now I'm going to add an unstitched border to the panel. If you have a sewing machine, you will save a lot of time, but for someone like me who doesn't have one, I'll show you how to do that. First, I mark the point where to pierce with the needle. With a pencil, I draw a dot every 1/8 of an inch. Anyway, the distance is up to you. After mark this point of all four sides of the panel, with a craft pick tool I'm gonna pierce the paper at the point I have marked. I'm using a soft mat underneath, in this case from a paper flower modeling kit, but you can also use foam sheets or a mousepad or some felt layers. Once finished, I proceed to pass a thread through the holes using a needle. The thread I chose is a very normal and inexpensive dark brown sewing thread. As you can see, I fixed the thread on the back of the panel with some tape adhesive, and I'm gonna start to sew it. Once you have finished one side, you can leave it like this or work backward and complete the seam without leaving any gaps, like I'm doing here. Once I finished one side, I'm going to cut out the thread and fix it on the back of the panel with some tape adhesive, and continues in the same way for all the other sides. And here the panel with the stitch edges is ready. Now from the brown pearlescent paper included in the kit, I'm gonna make a 4¼ by 5½ panel, thus creating finishing edges for the background panel. Just to be frugal, I'm gonna save some paper, cutting out the center, which will be hidden by the background panel. Then let's move on to the focal point, which will be a three-dimensional flower created using the dies from the kit. I'm gonna cut out 2 large and 3 small petal shapes on brown pearlescent paper. Then on this pink pattern paper from the pad included in the kit, I'm gonna cut out 2 shapes of large petals and 3 medium petals. To give the flower a three-dimensional look, I'm going to model the shape of the petals with a paper modeling kit. Also, in the first part of the video, I showed you this process and how to find the necessary tools. Before buying this kit, I used a simple rubber mouse pad and the rounded end of the brush handle. Returning to the flower, I place the large and the medium petals side down, and with a circular movement of the stylus, I'm modeling them, giving a concave shape. Same thing for the large and medium pink petals. For the small petals, I'm going for a convex shape. Now it's time to glue every petals together. And the three-dimensional flower is ready. Now I'm going to create a small cluster. One of the elements of my cluster will be a tangle of threads, the same brown I used earlier, and an ivory one. Another element will be the corrugated cardboard that I prepared in the first part of the video, obtained from the box of the kit. So, after cutting out two strips of cardboard, I'm inking them with Distress Ink Vintage Photo. And I'm going to dirty them with the Nuvo glue pen and then apply the gilding flakes. For the sentiment, I'm going to cover a piece of cardstock with a double-sided tape and I'm going to die cut it with the base of the word Special. I remove the protective film from the double-sided tape and I'm going to apply the gilding flakes. And this is another way to use it. With a stiff Bristol blending brush, I make the gilding flakes adhere well to the paper and at the same time remove the excesses. Then, again on ivory cardstock, I'm going to die cut the word Special. Slightly dirty the word with Vintage Photo and glue, letter by letter, the whole word onto the rose gold base, helping me to position them correctly with the negative part of the die cut. To finish my sentiment, I'm going to stamp for someone on the brown pearlescent paper with the clear Versamark ink and it emboss it with the embossing powder included in the kit. Finally, I'm going to cut out the sentiment by leaving just a small border all around. I'm going to prepare my card base on ivory cardstock in standard size, that's 4¼ by 5½. And I'm ready to assemble the card, gluing the background panel on the pearlescent frame. Then the whole panel on the front of the card base. But first, to eliminate the different thicknesses in the central part, I'm gonna glue some leftover cardstock. Now I play a little with the focal point and with the sentiment to decide how to position the element of my cluster. Well, I just have to glue everything. I will use a mix of adhesive, liquid glue, strong adhesive tape for the threads, foam tape for the flower and for the sentiment. I'm going to finish the card with the pink crystal drop of the kit, creating the center of the flower as well as a few drops here and there. And the card is finished. The last technique I show you to make a background with the shimmer powder is the Emboss Resist technique. First, on ivory cardstock, I will create a background by stamping lines of words formed by the stamps of the kit. In particular, I compose a line using the 3 follow yo of the set. I proceed to stamp using the clear Versamark ink. To help me make straight stamps, I drew lines with the pencil. After covering a half panel, I proceed with the hot embossing technique, using the embossing powder included in the kit. I'm going to melt the powder with the embossing tool, and I keep stamping the rest of the background. I divided the process into 2 parts to prevent the ink from drying too much. I'm going to heat emboss the other half part of the panel, taking advantage of the waterproof property of the embossing powder. I paint the background with the shimmer powder, using another technique, the ink smooshing. So I'm gonna spray some water on my work surface and dilute some shimmer powder. If you don't have this kind of surface, you can use a special mat or a common acetate sheet. Continuing with the ink smooshing, I proceed to dab the paper on the colored pool of water I created. I also put some powder directly on the paper to increase the intensity of the color. With this technique, you usually proceed by creating various layers of colors, repeating the smooshing several times and drying the paper between one layer and another, ending when you are satisfied with the result. As you can see, the embossed part of the background resists the color and remained visible, and we achieved this beautiful effect. Last touch, some splattering. And now let's make the card. I immediately prepare my card base. I always use a 300 GSM ivory cardstock, and the measurements are always the standard ones. From the background, I gonna make a 3 3/4 by 5 inches panel. By doing so, I will get some finishing edges around the panel. As a sentiment, I'm gonna use the negative part of the die cut I created for the third card of the first video, using the Dream die included in the kit on the pink mirror cardstock. I slightly cut it out and I'm gonna make an oblique cut on the right hand. On the background of my sentiment, I'm gonna glue a strip of Speciality card included in the kit. I chop off the excesses and I'm gonna complete the sentiment with Follow You stamped on ivory cardstock. I add a finishing edges, always using the green embossed paper of the kit. Now, to decorate the card, I am going to cut out the floral part of the oval frame included in the kit on vellum. I am going to select the leaves that I like, defining the borders with my scissors where necessary. Now it's time to put everything together. I'm gluing the main panel onto the card base, and after decide how to arrange the element, I'm going to stick them with some liquid glue, except for the follow-yo, which I'm going to use some foam pad to give some dimension. I'm going to finish the fifth card by creating a few drops of pink crystal drop here and there. The sixth card will be a simple, easy and quick card, and I will propose you a way to use the beautiful Craft Perfect card. First of all, I'm preparing my card base on ivory cardstock in a standard size that's 4¼ by 5½. Then, from 4 types of paper included in the kit, I'm gonna get strips of different thicknesses. Having been selected by the designers of Tonic Studios, the colors of these cards match perfectly with each other, and I want to take advantage of this feature. Now I'm gonna glue the strips of paper directly onto the card base, forming an oblique banner on the bottom of the card. I proceed alternating the various colors. Once my banner is composed, I'm going to cut out the excesses. After that, I dedicate myself to the sentiment, die cutting special on one of the cards I used, specifically the Iridescent card. I will use only the positive part of the die cut, so I glue letter by letter the word on the card, aligning them with the top strip of the banner. I complete the sentiment by stamping for someone above the word special with my black VersaFine ink. I'm using the stamp platform because it allows me to align the stamp well before stamping, but of course with a little attention you can use the normal acrylic block. Final touches for this very simple but cute card. A few drops of pink crystal drop parallel to the banner, and the card is finished. We are come at the last card of this video. I'd like to propose you a very essential and elegant card, perfect for a wedding. First, I prepare the card base in a standard size that's 4¼ by 5½ on ivory cardstock. Then, from the cotton paper of the kit, I'm gonna get a 3⅜ by 5¼ banner. To decorate the card, I will make a flower with some vellum. I always use the same method. I die cut 2 large flower shapes, 3 medium petals and 3 small ones. I'm going to model the petals with the modeling kit to create a three-dimensional flower. I'm going to assemble my flower. Then, from the iridescent paper of the kit, I'm going to cut out a decorative strip for my banner, and I glue it, cutting out the excesses. I'm going to glue the banner onto the card base, and let's move on to the sentiment, for which I will use the die Celebrate on the iridescent paper. This die is not included in the kit. I'm gonna glue the sentiment above the decorative strip. Notice that I added another small flower, also created with vellum, but rest assured, it won't last long. Disaster in! Okay, I'm gonna remove this flower. It was destiny. Of course, I kept making disasters, dirtying the card. But let's not lose heart. You can always fix your mistakes, or almost. In this case, I'm going to cut out the bottom of the card and the problem is solved. So I just have to add a few drops of crystal drop and the card is finished. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining with me. If you'd like, leave me a thumbs up and we'll see very soon with the next episode. Thank you very much again. Bye bye and be colorful.